Hey everyone, and welcome back to Joey's Retro Handhelds. I'm Joey, and today we're going to be doing a full starter setup guide for the AYN Odin 2. Okay, so let's get started. Just going to turn it on for the first time now, and I factory reset this ahead of time so that we could just start from the beginning. First thing we obviously want to do is just go through the start, and this should be probably easy for anybody to go through, but just go ahead, connect to your internet, and set all of that up. Once you're connected, just go ahead and set your time zone as well. And lastly, on this screen, you want to select the AOSP launcher instead of the Odin launcher, because we're going to be using Daijisho instead for a front end and we don't need their launcher. This screen is personal preference. I prefer to have 3-button navigation, but some people might be comfortable with gesture, so it's up to you. Okay, so now that we're here at the start, and this is basically just you've set everything up and we're ready to go. Okay, so the first thing that we can do is just go swipe down, head over to the Android settings, go all the way down, and we're going to go to System, head over to Updater, and you want to just check for an update. I'm on the most recent version right now, but if you aren't, it'll bring you right up and you can just do all of the over-the-air updates currently, and then come back and continue the video. First thing we want to do is just jump into the Play Store and sign in. Okay, so after you've signed into the Play Store, just open it and just jump over to My Apps and just do any updates that you see there. While that's happening, we can go ahead and change some other settings. Scroll down from the top, and obviously you're connected to Wi-Fi. For the performance modes, I would suggest that you stick to performance. That is the best option I found available, and you don't have to ever change that. You can just leave it in performance forever. Next up, we have the ambient LED lights, and that's going to change the LED lights on that and as well as the sides. So if you turn those on, you can see what that looks like. And for me, I'm just going to make it a little bit less bright and turn it to blue because that's what I want. For fan, I would suggest just keeping it in quiet. I don't have a reason to ever change out of that, so just leave it in quiet and go from there. Charging separation is something that I usually keep on, and that basically just allows it to charge the device instead of the battery in certain situations to avoid heat. So I would keep that on if you wanted it. Bluetooth, airplane mode, auto rotate, we don't have to worry too much about those. I do want to turn on Do Not Disturb because I don't like having notifications and all that ding through. And we can also go through here. I'm going to turn off floating icon. It shows up on the side and it's a pull-out menu that you can see and do things with. Personally, I don't have a use for it, but if you want it, just click it on there. Otherwise, the rest, you can just leave default. However, I am going to turn off location because don't really need it for anything that I'm going to be playing. Okay, now one other thing I do want to point out, if you insert an SD card, you might get a pop-up like this that just says, hey, the SD card's there, do you want to explore it and all of that. If you don't see that and you've inserted your SD card, best thing you should do, jump over into the Android settings, go over to storage, change it from this device to whatever the SD card name is, so in my case it's Odin 2, and you can go here and it's right at the top, just go to format. And this will format the SD card for portable storage for this device. And that's what I suggest. Don't format it as internal, format it as portable. If you have your SD card in, perfect, you're good to go. I have mine because I've used this device before and everything's all good for me. One other way that I'm going to show if you want to transfer files to the device is if you connect a USB from your computer, you should get a pop-up like this that says file transfer. And if you do that on your computer, you'll be able to just look at it like a drive and then transfer files back and forth. It's a really easy way to do it. Now, personally, I don't actually use any of those ways. I'm going to show you a different way that you should just probably get used to if you want. Jump into the Play Store, go over to Solid Explorer, Solid File Explorer is the name, and download that app. You can just skip next through everything here, accept the license agreement, and then you have to give it permission, so you can just grant, allow, and there we go. Now, one of the benefits of this app, so you can see already it's a file explorer, so you can do anything you want on the device, as well as go on to your SD card and do all of that. However, a really good benefit here, if you click the plus sign and you go new cloud connection, you can connect to your cloud services, FTP, all of that. But one really good benefit is LAN. And if you have your main computer where you have all of your ROMs or any files that you want to transfer over, and you have network discovery enabled and you're sharing any folders on there, you can connect to your PC here. So you're going to see here, Joey PC, next. I have a username and password, so I'm just going to put that in real quick. Then just click next a few times and connect. And it's going to ask you if you want to protect it. I don't need to. And there, now you can see I've connected to my PC, and I can go in and go to my downloads folder or any folder that I'm sharing across my network, and then just start transferring files over. So it's a really easy way to get ROMs off the computer to your actual device without having to plug anything in or do anything, because I'm lazy and I just want to do this on the couch. Anyways, for right now, doesn't matter. We can get rid of that. Let's jump into the Android settings. So just swipe down, go over to settings, and you can go through here and just change some settings along to what you want, but gonna go to ones that I care about. So I'm gonna turn on performance mode in the battery settings because that's what I prefer. And we're gonna go over to sound and vibration, just double check that there isn't anything here. You can turn off some of these sounds, and I probably will later, but that's all personal preference. Display is one that's bothering me right now, so I'm gonna go screen timeout. I don't like having the screen timeout real quick. And I'm gonna turn on dark mode. That should be a lot easier for everybody, including myself. Scrolling over, I'm not going to touch any of these other options. There's colors that you can change. This one actually I am going to change because I don't want a screensaver, and I'm going to turn that off. Otherwise, and I'm probably going to have to start cleaning my screen as we go along, there isn't anything else here. Now, what we should do next is jump into the Odin settings. And in the Odin settings, you can change some of the things we've already done, like the joystick and side LED and all of that. But you can go down and change some video output modes and all of that fun stuff. One thing I would suggest changing, go into L2 and R2 mode and change that to both. This will let you have it work with Daijisho, which if you don't turn this on, you can't use the triggers to navigate around Daijisho. Another option here, if you wanted to, is change the controller style from Xbox to Odin or none. You can change the key mapping for the back buttons if you wanted to. I'm going to leave them as default. And you can do some joystick calibrations and all of that. Otherwise, nothing else that you need to do here, so we'll just back right out. Now, let's start ahead and go ahead and just add some emulators. First thing we're going to do is add RetroArch, because that's probably what everybody wants. I'm going to use without an account, and don't worry too much about this stuff, but jump over into Google, and we're going to get ads here because we're using Chrome, but for today, this is fine. I would suggest installing Firefox Nightly as your browser. Go over to RetroArch, and it's just retroarch.com. And we're going to scroll down past the ads, jump over to download, and close out the ad again. And on the download screen, as we scroll past all of the ads, you want to jump over to the Android section, and you should see here download 64-bit. Go ahead and click that. It'll just ask you where you want to download it. It's dangerous. It's not dangerous. Don't worry, you're good. Let it download. Click and open it, and it's going to let you to install unknown apps because we've never done this before. So just click yeah, and you should get an install prompt. And there you go. We have RetroArch installed. We're going to open it now. We need to give it access, so we'll click OK and allow. And just ignore this. And just let it do its thing for a second. And we're good. Now, we're not using RetroArch for front end, so we're just going to go in and change some settings. First thing we want to do is go over into the online updater, which it might be B. Yeah, B is going to be the button to use for right now, and then core downloader. And now this is going to be personal preference for a lot of people, but just go through and select the cores that you want. So if you want to do arcade, I would suggest Final Burn Neo, and let's keep going. I'm going to pick the ones that I normally do. So if there's a system that you play that I don't, just go ahead and install it. This is personal preference, like I said. Okay, so for Nintendo, we're going to go Gambate, and then we're going to go MGBA for Game Boy Advance, and I'm going to use Messen for NES, and then I'm actually going to install, where is it? SNES 9X for SNES, and we're going to scroll right down. I'm going to use Flycast as our Dreamcast core, and then you can use Genesis Plus GX for most of the Sega stuff. The rest of it I am not going to touch because we're going to be using something else, including PlayStation. Not the best way to play PlayStation on RetroArch. Back out, and not much you can do here right now. You could go ahead and update all of these if you wanted to. Not necessary at this point though. So jump over, and I'm just going to use the D-pad to jump over so you can see, you can click this on the side too. And we want to get over to the settings. Now, first thing we want to do is jump over into on-screen display, overlay, and display overlay to off. What that'll do is we don't get the touchscreen buttons on the screen anymore. Then scroll down and want to go over to input. And this time we're going to go into RetroPad binds, port 1 controls, and I'm going to change analog to digital type to left analog. And what that does is it lets you use the left analog stick in situations where you have only the D-pad. Scroll down, and now this you just want to map every button. So I would suggest touching it and then holding the button that you need and going about it that way. So just keep going down, map everything to what it says on the right, the B button, the A button. Once you get to right analog right, you can just stop. And then what we're going to do, don't use the buttons because it's all screwed up at the moment. Head over to menu controls, and you're going to see right now it doesn't work. So click off menu swap, OK, cancel, or try to. There we go. And now you can actually use it as Nintendo layout. So A is going to be enter, B is going to be back. If you don't want that, then don't do what I just did, but I prefer it this way. Then jump over to hotkeys, and we're going to set up hotkeys. So the enable button is select. So I just hold down select, and I'm going to go ahead and select the controller combo for quit, and I'm going to make that Y for me. So now when I put select and Y together in a game, it's going to close out of the actual game. Then we can just keep going, and for me, I want fast forward toggle to be R2. And I want load state to be L1, save state to be R1. And we can keep going. The last one that I usually do is show FPS, and I'm just going to set it to A. And I feel like I'm missing one, but I think that's about it. And there was one that I forgot, which was menu toggle. And I'm going to select that to X. Again, personal preference, you can go through and set up whatever hotkeys you want. Let's back out again. Not much else you have to change on this end except going to turn off confirm quit so that it doesn't ask us if we want to quit every time we leave a game. Jump out. If you want to do retro achievements, jump into achievements and you can do it here. I do, but I'm going to set this up later. Pretty easy though if you wanted it. You can just go in, put your username and password, and I would suggest turning off hardcore mode. That is definitely something you want to do. Otherwise, if we jump over to configuration file, click save current configuration, or every single thing we just did is not going to matter. You have to save your configuration anytime you make a change. Otherwise, we are basically done with RetroArch at the moment, so we can go ahead and quit RetroArch. Now, you're probably curious, hey, did that work? Let's go ahead and try it. We're going to go over to the Play Store, and I'm going to install Daijisho. Daijisho is the front end that we're going to be using for launching all our games. Click open on Daijisho, and now it's going to ask you to download platforms. So what we're going to do is just go through, and right now we're just going to install the ones that we went with in RetroArch. So for me, we have Dreamcast, we have Arcade, we have Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color. We don't have any of those. We have NES. It doesn't matter. You can go ahead and click all the ones that you want anyways. I'm just going to show you how to do it this way. We'll put Genesis and then Super Nintendo. And I think that would be it. Go ahead and click import. And there. Now we have, you can see them at the bottom. Oops. You can see them at the bottom, all the different platforms, and I can scroll through with my triggers. What we're going to do is just pick a game. So we're going to go over to SNES, and I'm going to click Paths. And what this is going to do is locate where our ROMs are. Now, if you're here and you have no idea what ROMs are, I'll include a link in the description so you can find them. However, for the rest of you who have your ROMs maybe on your SD card or even on the internal storage, just navigate to where you have your ROMs. So for SNES, I'm going to go over here, and I just have them in a ROMs folder, SNES, and I'm going to click Use this folder. And then I'm going to click Sync. You're going to see it's going to start doing things, and if we jump into the library, you can see they're all there. It'll start adding all of the artwork and all that automatically. What you have to do though, click the pencil on the right, scroll right down, and you want to make sure that this here, the default player, is the exact same as what we clicked in RetroArch, or when you load it, it's just not going to work. So you can see here, this one is actually correct. So they pulled the right one. We're using RetroArch 64, and we're using, SNES 9X. So that's all correct. I don't have to change anything. Go right back. If we load a game, so I'll just pick one, you're going to see an error that pops up, killing package processes and all that sort of thing. So let's cancel out, and I'm going to show you how to change that. Go over to settings, go over to library, scroll right down, and disable player warnings. We don't need that. So go back, and you can use the L1 to go all the way back, library, and a plumber for all seasons. And you can see here that it pulled up RetroArch. We're missing achievement information because I didn't enter it. But if I go ahead and play this now, and again, we're using RetroArch. So I'm going to fast forward right through all of this by using my hotkey. You can see we're working perfectly. No issues. Now, if I push select and X, we get the RetroArch menu, and you can do other things if you need to. Otherwise, you're basically set up. Now, if you noticed, when I booted into this game, it didn't exactly load in where we left off. And so if you want that functionality where when you exit RetroArch, it saves your state, and when you load in, it loads the state, then what we're going to do is just get out of this game. So select and Y. Going to jump right into apps, go to RetroArch. Going to jump over into the settings menu, and we're going to go all the way to saving. And then we're going to select auto save state and auto load state. And what that'll do is anytime you load in, it'll load into the save state you left off in, and then when you quit, it'll save it. We're basically done with RetroArch, and the last thing that we want to do with Daijisho, because we're kind of done with that too, is go into your Android settings, jump over into apps, go down into default apps, not screen time, default apps, and change the home app into Daijisho. And what that'll do now is whenever you push the home button, it'll bring you right back to Daijisho. Now, do not use home button to exit a game, but you do want to use it afterwards. If you're like, let's say in Chrome, and you're like, hey, I want to get back to Daijisho, just push the home button twice and you'll get right back. The reason you don't want to use it to exit a game is because you won't save any of your progress. It won't do anything for you. It'll just hurt you. So don't use it that way. Let's jump over into Play Store and let's do PlayStation 1. So if we go over and type in DuckStation, and we want to download the DuckStation app. Click play, going to click next. Resolution scale is up to you. I'm just going to set it to 5x for 1080p because we can. The rest of it, I would select PGXP geometry correction because we can. Click next. BIOS question, it's going to be the same as the ROMs question. If you have no idea what BIOS is, check my link in the description and I will show you how to find BIOS files. But I already have BIOS files, so I'm going to go ahead and click mine and import, navigate to wherever yours is and select it, click next, Game directory is where are your PS1 ROMs. So I'm going to go over, click PSX because that's my folder for PS1 ROMs. Click next and finish. It's going to add all of my PS ROMs. Okay, so that's done. Hit the settings menu on the top and we want to go over into app settings. And one of the things you can do here is if you go to graphics, you can go ahead and change some of those graphic informations, but achievements are here too. So this is where you would enable retro achievements if you want them. Otherwise, head back and we'll go into controller settings and we're going to go into touchscreen and we're going to disable this one to click none. And then port 1 is where we can map our controller. So what I'm going to do is change it to an analog controller for DualShock so that this works. And then let's just go again and we're going to map all of our controls. I would pay attention to what the text says instead of what it looks like because you might get confused. Just go through, map everything. You don't need analog toggle, at least I usually don't. Okay, and then if you want vibration on, I would go over to the touchscreen menu. For some reason it's here, and you want to go to enable game vibration. Lastly, if we jump over to hotkeys, one thing I will turn on is toggle fast forward, and that just lets you turn fast forward on while you're in the game. If you want to hit the menu in game, I'll show you in a second what that looks like. So we'll just pick up Breath of Fire 3. And if I want to jump into the menu while I'm in game, push the back button here, and there you go. You can do all this sort of thing, or map the hotkeys if you want, but toggle fast forward, all that stuff is here. DuckStation is done. We can get out of here. And again, to make sure this works from Daijisho, I'm not going to keep showing this, so I'm just going to show this once. Go over to download in the bottom right, and remember we didn't add PlayStation 1, so we're going to go over, find Sony PlayStation, import it, and now we have PSX right here. Click Paths, navigate to where you have your PSX ROMs. I am fat fingering a little bit. There we go, PSX, use this folder, and click Sync. And again, it's going to sync all those ROMs, but what you want to check is the pencil and make sure that this says PSX DuckStation. And again, you're going to have to do this for every single platform that you add to make sure that it's actually using the right core or emulator, or else you're going to have a bad time. Let's go over now, and one of the ones you probably want is Dolphin emulator for GameCube and Wii. So type in Dolphin emulator, and we're going to go to the dolphin-mu.org. Jump over into download, and you're going to get an ad again because Chrome sucks. Scroll all the way down, and we're going to go to the development versions. And you want to grab the one that says Android all the way on the right. Click download anyway. You don't want the Play Store version of this because it's way behind. So make sure you download this one that I'm showing on screen. Open, Dolphin emulator, and open again. You can disable that or add it, whatever you want. Now, first thing we're going to do is add games for GameCube. So go add games, jump over, Odin 2, ROMs, go over to my GameCube folder and use this folder. Going to do the same thing on the Wii tab, add games, ROMs, jump over into the Wii folder and use this folder. Now, next thing you want to do is go over to settings, and we want to jump through, and I'm just going to double check that certain things are enabled. You can enable save states here, so I would suggest that. Interface, there isn't anything that I can remember. Nope. Jump out. I'm going to go to graphics. I'm going to leave all of this as default, and I'm going to click compiled shaders before starting. Enhancements, you can just go ahead and select 1080p because all of the games are going to run at 1080p. Otherwise, here, nothing else you have to touch, but we are going to map the controls. So go over to GameCube input, click the little icon on the right, and we want to go over to buttons and just start mapping. All right, so now that's GameCube, and GameCube's done. So you can jump into a GameCube game and you're all set. I am not going to do Wii for everything. I will show you Wii for the classic controller. But if you're going to go further than that, you might have to look up a special video for those because it just sucks. So head over, start mapping all of the Wii stuff. And I might have done the triggers wrong again. You don't need to map home, usually don't. Yeah, I did the triggers wrong again. I wish they would just tell you. Head all the way back, and ZL, I'm gonna do L1, ZR, R. Okay, so now we just mapped the classic controller. And that'll get you playing any games for classic controller and GameCube games. So if you want to just double check that it works, we're going to jump into Kirby Air Ride. And we have all of these touchscreen controls, and you're probably freaking out. Push the back button on the bottom, pulls up this menu. You're going to go over to settings. Oh, no, not settings. Overlay controls, toggle controls, and toggle all. And they're all gone. If we go into Wii, I'm going to click Fire Emblem. And you can see this game works fine too. So exit out. And once again, you want to add your platform here and make sure that the right emulator is selected so that it can boot into GameCube. Next popular one, let's go and do Aether for PS2. This one's going to be a weird one, and I'm going to show you how I usually do it. I type in Aether SX2 3668, which is the last best version that we have. And APK Mirror is usually where I get it from. So if you just jump right here and scroll down past all the ads, see available downloads, close out that ad, and then just click that. And again, close out all the ads. Download APK. And download anyway. Open it, install it, and open it again. These steps are going to be basically the same as DuckStation. So we're just going to go ahead and click next. Leave it as optimal safe defaults. Native upscale, I would leave it as 1x just because there are going to be games where it's a little tough. Navigate to your BIOS file wherever you have it. So I have mine in a BIOS folder, PS2 BIOS. Actually, no, it's not that one. We'll say it's that one. Next, game directories, ROMs, PS2, use this folder, allow, next, and finish. Let it scan for all of your games. Perfect. Now, what you want to do here, and this might be different for everybody because sometimes it doesn't actually happen, go over into Play Store, type in Aether, go to where it says you're installed or whatever. Make sure enable auto update is off. You don't want to ever update Aether because the next one has ads. So just keep on 3668 forever. Over here, go over back into Aether, and if you go back into app settings, you can go to the graphics tab and change things, or achievements, which exists too. But what we want to do is not go into a game, so exit. We're going to go into controller settings. And again, same thing, touchscreen, disable, scroll all the way down, enable game vibration, controller 1, we can leave as that, and just start mapping again. And then if we scroll all the way over to hotkeys, once again, I'm going to turn on toggle fast forward, and I put that to L3. And if we jump into any game, so I'm just going to pick one game, it's the same scenario. Once again, if you click the back button, you'll get the menu, and you can do all sorts of things in here if you want to. Exit game. Once again, add the platform to Daijisho and all of that. Now, if you want to change how Daijisho looks, you can go ahead and go into Appearance from Settings and download platform wallpaper packs and go ahead and do all that. Not going to get into all that too much here because those are just extra things. I just want to get you up and running. What are we missing? We are missing probably Switch. So go over to Chrome, go to Google, and we're going to type in Yuzu Android GitHub. First link here, the Yuzu Android GitHub. Scroll down, and you should see releases on the right. Click 124 releases or whatever it says, and just grab the most recent APK. So 127 APK, download anyway, and open. Yuzu, install. Go ahead and open, and we'll get started. We can grant permission for notifications. I'm not going to show you where to get prod keys. That's something you're going to have to figure out. Google might help you, but I have those. So I'm going to go to where I have my prod keys and select them. And Now you want to select your games folder, which again, I have my ROM switch folder right here, and click continue. Okay, while it's loading my games, I'm going to go over to settings, and we're going to go over into advanced settings, and we're going to go into, we want to keep off docked mode. We want to go into graphics, and we want to go ahead and force maximum clocks, use asynchronous shaders, and I'm going to leave the last one off. Then head back. GPU driver management. We're going to need a GPU driver here. And so best way to do this, head over to Chrome, go in and type in Yuzu. Just type in Yuzu driver. It's probably the best way to do it. And go over to the Kimchi link, type that one in. Go to releases again. And you want to grab, as of today at least, this most recent one is the Mesa Turnip driver revision 9. So we're going to go ahead and grab that. And wherever you put it, doesn't matter. You can go ahead and move it around. Go back into Yuzu and GPU driver manage, install. Go over here. And mine is just on my internal storage. So I'm going to go to download, turnip, and there you go. So you're just adding that in. Head back. Now if you jump into a game, so we'll just go into Advanced Wars, let's say. You should see all of the touchscreen controls are on, so I'm going to click back. Overlay options, toggle controls, and toggle all. And now we've lost all of those touchscreen controls. Okay, and there we go. Switch is working. So we can exit out, push the back button, exit emulation, go B, or close everything. And now the last one that we want to do is 3DS. So we'll go over to Chrome, type in Citra, Citra MU, go to the Citra website, click download, scroll down to manual download, and now we want the Canary build. And you want to click the Android icon of the most recent one. So we're going to go over into Solid Explorer, go into internal memory where it downloaded, the download folder, and just extract, just like that. In the folder, click the APK, and you want to use package installer, and you can set it to always. You have to allow unknown apps again, and just click install. Open it, and get started. We're going to grant permissions. We can grant the microphone, sure, while using the app. Sure, you can watch me while I'm doing this. User folder. So now what you want to do, click yes, and we're going to make a folder, and you can put it anywhere you want. If you want to put it on your SD card, I usually just do it on the internal. And I'm going to call it Citra Canary. And I just put that on my internal storage, just with all of the other folders in Citra Canary. Use this folder and allow. And click OK. Next, show it where the games are. So my games are on my SD card, ROMs, 3DS folder, and use this folder. Click next, and we're done. Now we have all of the games there, but they're not going to work just yet. So head over to the settings, and we're going to go to emulator settings. And there isn't anything that you really need to change in these other options. But go to gamepad and map your gamepad. A, B, X, Y. Select, start, up, down axis, left, right axis, up, down, left, right. Same thing with D-pad. Triggers. I don't know which is the right triggers. You can figure that out. Head back, go over to graphics, and we want to change graphics API to Vulkan. And then enable asynchronous shader compilation and eternal resolution. We're going to bump it all the way up to 4x because we can. The rest of the stuff doesn't really matter, but back out, head over into games and just pick a game. Again, we have all of the touchscreen stuff that shows up. So I'm going to push back and we're going to go to show overlay and disable that. And that's all there is to it. If you want to play around with the different ways to show the screen, you can do swap screens right here, or land screen layout. You can do side-by-side screens, whatever you want to do. Exit out. Okay, and now for Nintendo DS, we'll head over to the Play Store, and I'm going to type in MelonDS. And I like MelonDS because it has retro achievements. If you don't care about retro achievements, then I would suggest installing Drastic instead. And you can go through that setup. I have a video that I'll include in the link in the description if you want to use that instead. We're going to set the ROM directory. So again, go over to where your ROMs are for Nintendo DS. DS and allow. And head over to the settings on the right, type in settings. And over here, you can just go ahead, save files. It's going to naturally save them next to the ROM files if you want, or you can create a directory and save them elsewhere. Otherwise, log in for retro achievements right here. But input is what you want. So turn off show soft input so we don't get the touchscreen, and go ahead and do key mapping. So A, B, and I like to set fast forward toggle to button R2 and swap screens to L2. You can set up whatever else you want if you wanted to. Back out. And if we jump into a game, if I push R2, it's going to fast forward and you can swap between them and all of our buttons work. Back to get out of here and you can exit. For PPSSPP, so PSP games, go over to the Play Store and go PPSSPP and install. Click play. And now for this one, we want to create a folder the same way we did for Citra Canary. So click OK and make sure that you're wherever you want to create a folder. And I'm going to create mine and call it PPSSPP. Done. Use folder, allow. And click OK. Now we can just do some settings here. So first thing we want to do is browse to where our actual games are. So I'm going to go over to Odin 2 and ROMs, and there's my PSP folder, and click allow. And now you can see all your games. If you go over to settings, we can go ahead and basically just set the rendering resolution to 4 times. You're going to be able to run any game at 4 times and you don't have to worry about that. Next, jump over to controls and turn off on-screen controls. Go over to control mapping. And now this, I would suggest just clearing all and mapping everything. For fast forward, I like using speed toggle and setting it to R2. You can set up the rest if you want for any other hotkeys, but this is all I need. So I'm going to click back. And if you go over to tools, you can go into retro achievements, and again, achievements if you want them. Go back. Nothing else that you really need to do here. So if you just jump into a game, you can see we don't have the touchscreen controls and all of your controls are going to work. If you want to get out of this game, the back button here, and you can do save state and all that fun stuff. Exit to menu. And for Nintendo 64, we're going to use the M64Plus FZ emulator. I actually personally use the RetroArch one, but it doesn't have great compatibility. Here, we'll install the normal version. Click allow, and now we're here on the main screen of M64Plus FZ. Click the plus sign at the bottom and just select your N64 ROM library. Right down here, N64. Let it add, might take some time. Okay, so when it's done adding, you can go over to the left and we're going to go to settings and we're going to go to display, and you can change the render resolution to whatever you want. If you want to try and play it at 1080p, which a lot of games should work, so just go ahead and do that. And then scroll over again, and we want to go over to controller, and this is where you're going to map the controller. So what you can do is click new and call it whatever you want. I'm just going to click HH, click OK, and just start mapping. So L, Z to R2, S is start, A, B. The C-pads, I'm going to use the right stick for now. You might have to create different profiles for different games, but the C-stick is generally decent enough to be used for most games. Once that's all done, click next or back, and then go to select profiles and click the controller 1 profile and click the name that you created. So mine was HH. Back out and just pick a game to jump into. You're going to see that the touchscreen controls actually do pop up. And apparently an ad too if you're on the free version. I'm on the pro version, so I don't usually see that. But the touchscreen controls go away after a little bit, and the game loads up, and you can go ahead and play. So you're all good. Back button to exit, exit, confirm, and there you go. That's basically it. Like I said, the biggest thing to remember is just when you add platforms to Daijisho, click the pencil icon, make sure it's going to the right emulator that you installed. Otherwise, you can just play around. I have more in-depth videos on exactly what we talked about today. I'll include links in the description. This was trying to be a speed run through everything just to get you up and running. But hopefully this gets you all set up and you can go ahead and start playing some games. And so that's going to be it for this one. Don't forget to like and sub to help the channel grow, and hope you all have a good one.